All right, Kathleen, take it away.
Hi, sorry. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to how ESOL students can succeed with EnGen. Today, I'm really excited to have our first EnGen workshop of this year. And we have today with us Linette, who from the EnGen office in Colorado. So take it away, Linette.
Well, hello, everyone. So glad you're here. Thank you for taking the time to come and learn a little bit more about EnGen. Today, I would like to introduce my partner in crime, George McKibbens. He is going to be doing a bulk of the session today, talking about how he incorporates EnGen into his classroom. So George, if you want to just say hello.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
And I'm Linette Mancuso, the Director of Customer Success at EnGen. And I thought we would jump in with a live demo of the platform, just maybe 10 minutes or so to give you an idea of what EnGen is, a little bit about our course list, and then George is going to take over. And we'll have some time at the end for a Q&A, and then we will have a survey link. Before we jump in, I just want to give you this FYI. It's a pretty big one. You can get free licenses for EnGen for your learners in your program through the DESE program, through DESE. All you have to do is contact Paula Duragian, and I will, in a minute here, put her email address in the chat as well. But they have lots of licenses available. So if you have learners who you end up wanting to use EnGen, you can get the seats for free through her. All right. So I am going to stop the slideshow here for a second. And this is EnGen. So EnGen is an online platform that learners can be on it 24/7, day or night, from a mobile phone, a tablet, a computer. It's very self-driven, but as George is going to show you, he guides his learners through EnGen lessons as well. And the goal of EnGen is to teach English. And we have very beginner English classes. We have digital literacy classes. But the focus really of EnGen is to teach people English according to their career or job interviews. So we have some citizenship. So it's really a focus on what it is they want to do with their English and their life. And so just to give you a quick look at our course list, like we have lots of courses here. Workplace readiness, like effective communication in the workplace, job interviews, time management, business, how to do emails and phone calls. So we're teaching them the vocabulary of the business world. We have educational careers, so ECE and natural resources. We have the food and beverage and hospitality interests. So the English they might need to work in a restaurant. Healthcare is a huge focus for us. So if you have people who are wanting to be nurses, EMTs, phlebotomists, pharmacy techs, or they're needing to take the nursing certification. And then we have manufacturing, OSHA, and forklifts, and shipping. And then just a bunch of things like construction, how to get a standard driver's license or a CDL, technology, and then just some writing, how to write better, etc. So EnGen has quite a few courses that are specific to careers and them excelling in what they want to do in life. EnGen is pretty self-sufficient in that learners have to really do things themselves. They enroll in courses themselves. They go in here and they can practice themselves. They have 3 courses on their homepage at any given time. We have an orientation course on how to use the platform, I've enrolled in Introduction to English for Certified Nursing Assistants and English for e-commerce warehousing. And really, it's very fluid. They just come in and they start working in one of these courses. So if I could show you just quickly, they would click start. If they are Spanish speakers or speak Chinese as their native language, we can change some of these navigation buttons and things like the instructions to their native language. So it's a little easier for them to navigate. But basically, they would watch the video.
Laboring with your hands takes coordination and stamina, but it also takes customer service skills and the ability to follow through on instructions.
And then they would start to answer some questions. Now, this I would like to mention is an intermediate course. So they're not going to be speaking as slowly as they would in some of the beginner lessons, things like that. And they would answer the questions and then they would move forward. The video will continue. They have lots of different ways to answer the questions so they don't get bored. They might play a memory game, or they might play a spelling game. We have lessons in grammar. We have lessons, reading lessons and listening lessons. So there's lots of variety there, I think, to keep them interested. But the most important part is from the course list I showed you, all of the courses are here for them. So they can look through here. They can search for perhaps a course that is interesting to them. They can enroll in the courses. They can see if they open up this particular unit, they can see what they will be learning here. And then they can enroll in those courses themselves. We also have a practice area where they can practice grammar. So if you have very beginner learners, they can learn the alphabet. Here they can learn numbers, colors. They can learn things around town and at home. Or they can jump in to learn more about nouns. And then they can practice a lesson with a noun. As they learn and review these vocabulary words in their lessons, those words flow into the word bank where they can review those words. They can open them up.
Abrupt.
They can listen to them. They can star them if they want to come back to them. We have Google Translate in here, so they're not leaving the platform. When you enroll them in their native language, this will be in their native language, so they can Google Translate for assistance. They can also practice their pronunciation just by clicking on a word and saying it and listening to themselves say it. Phone number. And it'll tell them if they said it, oops, I think I did that wrong. And it'll tell them if they said the word correctly, they can hear themselves. And it'll tell them if they said it, oops, I did do that wrong. And
Phone number.
they can compare it to what how they pronounce the word. So there's some practice in here as well. The DESE licenses come with group classes, which are 30-minute sessions with an EnGen teacher, where they are in a group of no more than 10 other learners, and they are practicing their listening and speaking with the teacher. I know that George is going to talk a little bit about this in his presentation. So, but just know that that is here for them. They can reserve their spot, and they enter the virtual room with a group of their peers. So the EnGen platform, again, is accessible through mobile devices, computers, at any time, day or night that they want to study. Our focus really is vocabulary of the career that they are looking for, or we do have beginner English courses as well. Last thing to mention is we have an assessment that determines their language level if it's something that you need. If you already assess with CASAS or TABE or something like that, then you do not need to use the assessment, but it is here as well if learners need it. And the last thing I'll leave you all with is we also have workshops that we offer, virtual workshops. in grammar, in just how to use the EnGen platform. We're going to do a vowel pronunciation workshop on the 11th. These are free. These are in addition to whatever else they want to do on the platform. So, but they are not mandatory. That is the gist of EnGen. And I think now what I would like to do is turn it over to George, and I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to turn it over to George so he can just share with you what he does with his program.
Sure. Thank you so much, Linette. I saw actually a couple of the questions in the chat. Linda, it's coincidentally, I'm actually about to reference your question about typing, but hang on one moment. So thank you all for coming. Thank you very much, Kathleen and Linette, for inviting me to share. So this is where I work. It's an adult ed program in Boston. Goes back to the mid-1950s, and it's called El Centro Adult Education. And who we teach, oh, there we are. Who we teach are adult ed learners, immigrants who are either moving in the direction of workforce readiness or college, and it's from levels 1 to 6. When I first started at El Centro, it was actually right before COVID, and it was kind of in a transition period where a lot of teachers were dabbling with digital tools. And when we all went completely remote, I found a lot of silver linings because I enjoyed teaching remotely, and a lot of the creativity. I liked making videos even before that. I'd been using Zoom since 2017, and people I work with oftentimes think I'm a bit strange because I like teaching remotely, but I'm actually quite passionate about it. And sometimes I get a chip on my shoulder because personally, when I finished my master's degree, a lot of making a little anecdote, a lot of employers would oftentimes ask me if my degree held the same weight because I did many of my classes online. And oftentimes when I'm speaking to people, if it's administrators, funders, oftentimes I find a lot of bigotry with communities that are marginalized. And the group that I work with are low-income immigrants in and around the city of Boston. Very often I hear bold statements saying immigrants cannot learn computers. These people, very incendiary remarks, cannot do this. So all of that, all that dog whistle talk very much gets me really excited when I work remotely with marginalized communities. It gets me like really passionate. So of all the platforms I've used, I found EnGen to be the best barometer for communities that are in that transition in life, whether it's get into some vocational trade, get into college, or what makes our program unique is getting into IT training. We do have a transition to IT, and some of our students have little to no computer skills when they enter level 1. So sometimes when they get up to level 5, we need some type of way to figure out what is the path for them. Could they finish college on their own and manage work and family? Could they work in an IT position? Could they, or do they need some vocational training? One or the other. It's no longer with EnGen. It's no longer it's no longer a shot in the dark when we're advising students. Once they finish a semester using the EnGen platform, we have a really well-rounded assessment of what's best for our students. So I'll show you some examples of how I use EnGen. There's 2 views. What Linette just showed you was the student portal. Also on the left-hand side, the student portal is bright and students access it on their own. They can do it asynchronously. And you can also do it synchronously. I encourage everybody to show the EnGen platform. Whenever you have a moment for you to have your students in person, show the platform in class, walk through it with them, do a lot of peer-to-peer work. Then show them your admin portal. So lift the veil up. The admin portal is on the right-hand side, and I'll move the video panel. It's dark. It's a bit more industrial because it's a lot of names, it's a lot of emails, and it's a lot of statistics. Which student is using the platform more? Which student has not touched it in 5 days? Which student is using it all day, every day? And it's for you to assess your students. So I like to say that the admin portal, say the student platform, this bright, shiny one, that is the matrix. And the admin portal is when you remove the matrix and you see what's really going on behind the scenes. And always show students both. Because when you start using this platform, it's very, very easy to get overwhelmed because it's a rabbit hole. You think, oh man, what do I start with? Do I start with this lesson? Do I start with that lesson? Be humble. When you introduce it to your students, be totally honest and say, I'm using a new platform. It's my first day to use it. It's my second day to use it. I'm learning. If you see something I missed, let's do it together. Give it that approach because the students will respect you so much more rather than pretending to be the authority, because EnGen is constantly adding new content day to day. What EnGen was yesterday is not what it's going to be tomorrow. It's constantly adding new lessons. So, and making like new features. So it's constantly updating. Just introduce your students to the platform, get them comfortable, and create like a learning side-by-side situation with them. So that's my advice. That's the best way to do it. Now, who was it that asked about typing a little while ago? I think that was Linda. Yes, Linda, how are you? So
good, thank you.
excellent, excellent. So sometimes, even though I use EnGen primarily for a remote asynchronous class, sometimes I have students in that class come in person and just meet me during office hours. Sometimes I introduce EnGen, just some EnGen exercises in my other classes, just as a little teaser, because sometimes it might fill up something. And what I always like to do is a lot of people will disagree with me, but this is my personal approach. Avoid a one-to-one model. You see two of my students using one computer side by side. This is where I get a lot of pushback from this, but in a lot of instances, I find getting 2 students or even 3 students together, putting an EnGen lesson in front of them or any type of activity. Sometimes I make supplementary materials from EnGen lessons and having the 3 of the students discuss it, because for educators, most of what people are complaining about when they're talking about remote education is that sense of community, that sense of that social experience that they're not getting from the traditional classroom. You can easily create that once a week, a couple times a month. Get them to look at an EnGen lesson together and discuss it. And Linda, this is my best advice for low-level students who maybe students who speak and read well, but just don't have the typing skills. You can create a peer-to-peer exercise. These are some of my students in a separate evening program that I run. You have one mid-level student reading words, a low-level student who has 0 typing experience, and I mean 0. And this is an upper-level student who actually has and by the way, they've all agreed to let me show them. I'm not stealing anyone's image. All working together. So an upper level, a mid-level, and a low-level student working together for a typing exercise with a low-level EnGen exercise. So this is a live synchronous exercise where you can have multi-level students work side by side. So you'll see that this student has never touched a keyboard before. I just showed him ASDF JKL semicolon, and then let the other students serve as the peer leaders. Here it is.
A L L O. No.
Try again.
O
Try again.
W.
Now, a little bit about that is that even if it seems rudimentary, This student, in fact, who's the high-level speaker, she actually has only one hand. It's kind of a little bit poetic, is that the student with one hand is teaching the student who can't type with two hands how to type. And then you have this student who's a little bit shy feeding the information. So whatever content you have with EnGen, just get students to work together to create that friendship, to root out that isolation. And you can do this both in person and remotely. So
And if I could
yeah,
interrupt
yeah.
for 1 second, George.
Yeah.
Linda, our pre-beginner literacy course starts with teaching them the letters on the keyboard. So it'll say this is A, this is B, and it's showing them the keyboard. So we are teaching them the alphabet and numbers according to the keyboard. So I just wanted to jump in there.
No, that's awesome, because it was, well, Linette, you were giving your update. I was reading the comments in the chat and I said, oh, I think I'm going to nail one of those. So I hope that
you did, and you did.
oh, that is awesome. So yeah, create some type of create some type of excitement about remote learning. So whatever your program is, I always tell my colleagues, do not walk up to students in the hallway and say, oh, I'm so glad to finally see you in person. Stop doing that. Don't do that. just create the remote experience has got to be the party, the thrill, the event, the excitement, just as much as an in-person event. It should not, teacher, if you're an administrator, please tell your teachers to not give off this begrudging emotion when you are doing remote work. Just stop that, because we live in the 21st century, like it or not. Just don't do that. Just say, okay, here's something new. Let's do it. Let's learn together. And that's essentially the attitude you have to have for everyone across the board. Teachers, learners, everybody. Even if you don't like the century we live in, maybe you have kids who are going to be taking over when you're gone. So that's the attitude you have to have. So
A,
moving on, what I like to do to introduce asynchronous activities is open up a question at the beginning of the semester. And the question, this is one way I like to do it. Asynchronous activities are the barometer for the type of work you want to do. So you get a sense of what type of work you want to do. A lot of people work in construction. Some people want to work in beauty. Some people want to work in this, that, or the other. Oftentimes I put up a picture of two jobs and I'll say, what's the difference between job one and job two? Students give their answers. Teach students, if you're doing this on Zoom, teach students to write in the chat a little bit, use those Zoom tools. And essentially, job one is what a traditional classroom teaches you to do, where you have an authority figure, a boss, watching someone work in front of them. Job two is what an asynchronous classroom trains you for. Somebody who is trusted to do their work without being watched. And if you can think about your own experience as educators, if you're an administrator, in my school, when we all switched remote in 2020, the people who had the biggest problem was the administrators, because they used to love walking up and down the hallway, seeing people work in front of them. And all of a sudden they didn't have a hallway to walk up and down to see their teachers teaching. So it was a big insecurity for administrators to suddenly trust people to do their own jobs. And then going deeper, I like to ask my students, do you trust yourself to work when nobody is watching you? Because that's essentially what EnGen is. The teacher is not going to be standing over you, watching you do your assignment. That's the traditional classroom. The teacher stands and watches you do your work. With an asynchronous classroom, and what the EnGen platform is, it's for somebody who has the discipline and the drive to do their work without being watched. And it's a process. Some people gradually develop these skills. Some people never develop these skills, but that becomes your role as the educator. It's introducing someone to an asynchronous classroom. And here's where EnGen works a little bit better than other platforms I've used. So EnGen is easily linked to pre-existing platforms that students already may know how to use. So Google Classroom, if you're in a K through 12 environment, if you have kids in mass public schools, they're already familiar with Google Classroom. Video chat services, if you teach immigrant communities like I do, most of them already use WhatsApp. EnGen is very easy to integrate with all three of these. So I'm not advertising these, but these are the three platforms that my students already know how to use before they come into my distance learning class. And when I introduce EnGen, it doesn't feel like a chore. It doesn't feel like learning to use EnGen takes much time to relearn what they're already doing. So I'm going to leave this slideshow and show you exactly how I would integrate EnGen to one of these platforms. So here is my administration portal. So that's it. These are some of the newest EnGen lessons that have been added today. So you see the date. And a lot of these are stories from the Associated Press that are scaffolded properly for teachers to use. It's nothing a teacher can't do already on their own, but these are, so for instance, here's an article, here's a popular movie, here's an international story. So lots of different content that is scaffolded already. And on the right-hand side, if you're teaching a mid-level class to an upper-level class, you would filter it. So you see how I move that toolbar there. I could filter it all the way to the most advanced. I could filter it all the way to an absolute beginner class. So you're not sifting through thousands and thousands of lessons. So you could find the lessons that work for you. So a lesson that I've already decided that I will use for my class next week is right here. It's a short reading exercise, and it has about 16 vocabulary words. So very short, and this is how I integrate it. So when I introduce it to classrooms, to my classroom on a Zoom class, I'll introduce the title. Then I introduce some of the vocab words, just the way Linette showed you, and very basic. You don't just assume students know how to do this. Remind them to right click and left click and scroll, all of these things. Because remember, your students have varying abilities and experience with the technology. So tell your students, left click on the vocabulary word.
Discount stores. Discount stores.
And one thing that Linette reminded me the other day when we went over this stuff is remind students to go to the bottom of the screen to the vocab list. There it is. So you get a vocab list and remind your students, take it slow. If you're doing your schoolwork on the bus, maybe just try to memorize 6 words on the way to work, 6 words on the way home, whatever it is. Manage your time. So that's asynchronous teaching. It's teaching students how to complete a task on their own. Then you can show them the summary. So it's a little sentence about what the lesson is about. Now, it'll tell you to start the lesson, and it will give students a challenge to complete. But here's how I like to integrate it. You can do it multiple ways. If in your classrooms you're teaching emailing, you can ask students to check their email. And let's say, there it is. You click that arrow, and you can email it to one student, email it to the group directly. That can work. For some teachers, that's perfect if emailing is how you do it. For my students, emailing is a bit distracting. Sending a student an email is just like you might as well be putting a message in a bottle and throwing it in a river. So what I do is I go to the top to the lesson itself, copy the URL, cut and paste it. I go into my Google Classroom page, and this is as easy as it gets. I'll give it a title. Consumers push back fragment of the title. And then I'll tell them complete this lesson and attach a screenshot when you are finished. And if you're writing in the chat, how do I use Google Classroom? That's a totally different workshop. I won't answer that. Maybe later. So give it some points. I'm going to give that assignment for the 13th at, oh, I don't know. Let's say 13th at 5 p.m. So that's the due date. And whoop, I just made a mistake. Did anybody see the mistake I made? I'm glad I made the mistake because I can show you how to go back and do what I missed. I forgot the most important thing.
The link.
The link. That's right. Thank you. So I'm typing faster than I'm thinking. I can't talk and type and think at the same time. There we go. Slow it down, George. Okay. All right. So there it is. So that's it. So you post the link. And what I love, sometimes when I do that and I'm in a hurry because I'm managing other things, sometimes my students will message me back, hey, George, you forgot the link. Oh, thanks so much. Appreciate it. And I'll throw it in there. So you give it to them. And when students who've already signed in on EnGen, when they open it, the lesson comes up, boom. And the students can do this on their phone and attach a screenshot, and then I will grade them. Going back in my slides, here are some samples. So this is how one student's lesson came out. And you can give a rubric. I didn't show a rubric there, but it'll show the vocabulary. It'll show how well they did on the reading questions, how well they are doing on the listening questions, how well they're doing on the writing questions. They could do it on their phone. They could do it on any device. And then I like to give them comments. So this student's name is Vanessa. She nailed the writing, but struggled a bit with the reading and the listening. So then I give her comments. And that's how I generally like to do it. And that's really important with asynchronous classes and this is where EnGen doesn't do the work for you. EnGen will generate endless content for you. They do that for you, but then they give you as the educator a brand new challenge of curating it. What lesson goes where in the semester? Sometimes you'll find a lesson that works great. Sometimes you'll see a current event like today that shows up today. Yes, that's perfect. Where do you want to place that lesson? And then you are, as the educator, finding new assessment tools. This is how I assess students. You might find a totally different way to assess it. Maybe you meet them in person. Maybe you ask them to talk about how they're processing the lesson. Because EnGen will show a score. You can look at how often they're using it, how well they score on it. But when I bring them back on a Zoom class, oftentimes I find the students who are getting hundreds across the boards really are not processing that vocabulary, and you have to force them to recall it in some capacity, live or asynchronous. And you as the educator have total freedom to figure that out on your own. So I'll just repeat that. EnGen doesn't do everything for you. It creates the content for you, but then you are given totally new challenges assessing that content and then chronicling students' participation. So I like to use this on Google Classroom because it gives students deadlines. And if students can meet those deadlines, continue to progress throughout the semester, you can tell who is fit for what path. If you recognize a student can really nail the writing, sure, they could move on to community college. If the student is really savvy and showing other students how to do a lot of the tech stuff, they could go into IT. If a student cannot at all work on their own, then they need a traditional environment. Bring them back in person, have them do the work in front of you. That's fine, but it's a better gauge of what path students should go than a lot of other tools.
And George,
So,
we have a question here.
Yes.
Do most of your students work from a computer, laptop, tablet, or phone?
Fantastic question. And the answer is ideally computer. but we get donations from an organization called Tech Goes Home. And if they join, and it's not, and usually it's quarterly when we get these donations of Chromebooks. And if a student joins, usually they join with their phone. And depending on where in the quarter that laptop donation is coming in, that's when they will have a device to use. Very few of them have their own, devices. So it goes from when they join the program, they're usually trying to swipe from a cracked spider web looking screen of an Android phone. And then when they finish, they're using a Chromebook that was donated. And then if they get into the IT program, they're using a much more sophisticated one. Yeah, Jenny.
So, sorry, I just wanted to ask a question. You said you wanted students to complete a task and then send you a screenshot.
Right.
And I'm wondering, a screenshot of what?
Okay, you got it. This is a screenshot is the lesson itself. The lesson, what a lesson looks like is, I'll just begin a lesson.
Is this the end of a lesson, like the thing the student would see when they finish the lesson?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
And why do you want them to send you a screenshot of that if the program has the teacher or admin view where you can see what they've done? No?
Because it's easier to give, I like to keep it all in one place. And I also like to supplement things with, and my students already know how to use Google Classroom. That's more of an aesthetic choice just for me. You don't have to do that. That's generally what I like to do. Because students usually already know how to use Google Classroom. And I find that the integrating it with Google Classroom, it's much easier to give teacher comments like this. So for instance, this student's name is Sandy. And I said, "Hi, Sandy, looks like this was exactly the right challenge for you." The EnGen itself doesn't quite work as well with integrating supplementary materials. So for instance, sometimes I'll have a lesson, an EnGen lesson, and maybe I'll give them a separate article to read, a separate video to watch. I won't be able to attach the supplementary material to EnGen as easy as I can put an EnGen lesson onto Google Classroom or put an EnGen lesson onto some other platform. So that's really just my choice of how I like to present it.
Okay, I see.
Yeah.
So it's easier to give like typed feedback when you're doing it to a screenshot of their completed assignment than it is like in EnGen itself.
Correct. That's
okay.
And particularly because my students start on their mobile device, and if they have an iPhone, they know a screenshot goes like that. And it's less steps. If they have an Android, the screenshot goes like this, 2 at the top. And that's one of the basic skills I teach them in the beginning of the semester, screenshot. If they're all on separate devices, you have to like, okay, screenshot on a Mac, screenshot on a Chromebook, screenshot on this one. But that's actually part of it. I like to look at the screenshots to see, to give them, it's an aesthetic choice. It's a little bit prettier to show them how they're doing. But that's my choice, only my choice as the educator. Some people might find that a lot more of a hassle. And I knew one, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, and also your class is mostly done in Google Classroom. So students are used to going into Google Classroom to get information like feedback or assignments or whatever. So they have one place to get that kind of information.
Precisely.
Okay.
That's why I choose to integrate EnGen with a platform they already know, because you could keep it all in EnGen, which means that they're just checking their email to get each assignment. But most people don't like to look through 1,000 emails to find that one assignment from 2 weeks ago. So that's just my choice. And it's a great question. So it's easy. It minimizes the steps for my students. I was actually talking with Linette a little bit before we started. Some of the similar asynchronous platforms, there's Aztec, is harder to use because it doesn't integrate as smoothly as EnGen does. Like if all students show up to class already knowing WhatsApp, they live on their screens, they're TikTok zombies, whatever. You can send them an EnGen link and it will capture their attention. You don't have to reteach them. It's easier to just grab them instead of grab them with what they already know. Yeah, no, good stuff, Jenny. Let me keep going. And so another assessment tool I like to use is once or twice a semester, well, not once or twice a semester, periodically throughout the semester. I like to have students present on Zoom their favorite EnGen lessons. So here is a student, and before I say this, a little while ago, that was a demonstration with low-level students. These are the upper level students. So this, if you're teaching really low-level students, this might not work, but this is for the mid to upper-level students. So here's a student presenting his favorite EnGen lesson on the left. I'll go to the section. There it is. So you hear the student talk. His name is Chen Wang. This student is actually now studying in Northeastern. Not everybody goes that far, but this student was quite exceptional.
Various courses that every new was installed, deposited here that you can see. You can review it anytime you want. That is the practice function here. Most important one is the live instruction group class. You can see, I think group class is the very interesting one.
So in this presentation, Chen goes into one of the lessons that he went into. And that's one of the reasons, you notice how my admin portal was a little dark and industrial looking? Because I'm managing the students' progress. The students themselves have the bright, shiny version. And I always invite a student to say, show us what you did this week. And it's their job to learn how to use the screen share feature on a video chat platform like Zoom, show to everybody else what they learned. And the ones who excel at that can really move on. Some students can read and write really well, but they cannot present a single EnGen lesson, even a really short one, because they just haven't developed those skills yet. So that's why you as the educator need to just use the EnGen content to assess what's next for the student. This is another student who's now studying at Bunker Hill Community College. He really warmed up to EnGen and couldn't get enough of it. He was like he almost had like a compulsive way with EnGen. He wouldn't stop using it. I would always say, if you're driving, don't get on EnGen. Stop this, Nelsie. But he really loved it. He was quite passionate about these things.
You speak Portuguese, and when you have some sounds is different. And I speak Portuguese and Creole. I have PH is hard for me. It's hard because I can't pronunciation PH. and the interrogative negotiation, you have a lot of phrasal verbs, like cut to the chase. Cut to the chase. You have let me ask, bit bullet, and
So this student, he actually continued for he extended his presentation time. I had to have him wrap it up, but he would have gone all day about how a particular lesson helped him with his pronunciation. So I encourage you to not just give students EnGen to do on their own, not just track their progress within your admin portal, but have them come together at some point, even if they can never all be in the same place at the same time. Put them in small groups. Say, schedule a meeting with these 5 students and these 6 students and show each other what you're doing and what you're learning. And one thing that's very, very important is actually, you can just tell students to choose their own adventure, find their own lessons that they like. I personally would think that's a mistake. I think you have to set some guidelines. Everyone should learn, say, these particular lessons at this time, and then beyond that, go crazy, find what you want. Because if you give your students so much freedom and not enough structure, they'll just keep the app on and scroll up and down, and you'll have no idea looking at your admin portal whether they're actually processing the content. So I advise everybody to be specific, give them a particular lesson, come back in some synchronous or even asynchronous way to show you what they learned. The way I do that is with the screenshots on Google Classroom and with the weekly Zoom classes. The last the last two things I like to do is I like to use a Zoom class and use this feature. Give me a thumbs up emoji. If you go to reactions in Zoom, you'll see a thumbs up emoji. Give me a thumbs up emoji if you ever use this feature in Zoom, remote control. Anybody, nobody's ever used remote control?
I haven't.
Oh my goodness. Oh my God. Okay. So I'm going to show everybody this. I like to, a way to make the online learning really, oh, Linda does. Okay. Linda's all use remote control. Linda, let's see, how much time do we have? We might not have time for it, but I'll just show this demo. What I like to do is I make my own vocab games. You could use a platform like Kahoot or WordWall. You take that vocab list from the EnGen lesson. Once they finish it, supplement it with your own vocab game, or you could do a remote, you can do the remote control feature from the EnGen lesson itself. And this one was the Linette. One of my favorite EnGen lessons is the one titled "It's Good to Have a Stiff Upper Lip." This is the vocab from that exercise. It was about it was dropped about 3 months ago. I made a ton of supplementary material with that. It's a word wall exercise that I made from that EnGen lesson. So what I do is I give students remote access to my computer as the host, and then one student completes the matching exercise, and the rest of them, or 2 or 3 of them, have to help the student if they can't get it. So it looks a bit like this. This is a student getting help from her students matching the definitions to a vocab exercise. Access, let me just
Here.
So I give this student named Griselda remote access. So she's controlling the computer, dragging and dropping, but the others have to help her get the right answers. You can now, hold on a second. Let me just
Here.
hold on.
Yes.
Hold on, wait, one moment. Wait,
It is.
wait, hold on. That's what it looks like, because if you're explaining something and they're dragging your, I'll say, wait, hold on. Hold on.
Okay.
Hold on, just give me 1 moment. Let me, yep. Okay, go for it. Griselda, you got it. Go for it.
Go ahead.
Yep, go ahead.
Situation or event that could possibly happen. Scenarios. Here.
Nice.
Could
Worrying or preventing yourself from having or expressing a feeling or emotion. Subconscious.
No.
Suppressing.
Okay, see how when she got the wrong answer, the whole class is going, no, that's the wrong answer. So that's one way to create turn EnGen into an activity. You can do that with the EnGen platform as it is, but I like to get a little extra creative and take the content from an EnGen lesson and use it and mix and match it. It's versatile and it's a lot more fun that way. I have one student in Nigeria right now who happens to be in Nigeria, wakes up at 3 o'clock in the morning to do this stuff with the class because it's just that engaging. Last access, and I'll make this quick to leave room for questions. Get students to work in groups. This is it's kind of an interview. I showed Linette this earlier. We ask students to go to one of the live classes. That means EnGen has live events hosted and students can go, but students are very often too shy to do it on their own. So find the leader in the group and say, invite this student, this student, this student, this student, come back and tell me how it works. So basically a field trip, a student-led field trip that is in the EnGen platform. So here's one of the student leaders explaining how the live class went.
It's my computer, so I know. in the EnGen.
So this student is explaining how to access the live class and how it works. And some of her other classmates, she led to the live class, how it happened.
And then you have the home page. And you can see here in the top of the page, the live instruction. When you put in group classes, you can join to watch these classes. And there's a lot of subjects here. We can talk about nutrition, books and literature. I don't know if I say it right. Business skills, networking. You can choose whatever you want. And here you can see the date and the time the class will happen. It used to be 30 minutes. And then you just press reserve, and you will receive in your email confirmation. And then this class used to be a person who talking about the subject, for example, business.
Now, she'll go on a little bit, but in these sessions, I like to ask students to give constructive criticism. And most platforms, you're not going to get as much direct contact to the people who make it. So very often I'll get feedback from the students using the platform, and then I'll just send it to Linette. And that's pretty much and Lynette's always happy. And sometimes I will give Linette constructive criticism. Hey, in the admin portal, why don't you move this to over here? Why don't you move that over there? You're never, ever going to get that personal touch using something made by Google or MSN, which is something I really appreciate. So you can directly send Linette a message. She's on Mountain Time, but she responds within 24 hours. And she says, cool, I will go back to the team and see if we can make a change. So this is some of the other students talking about how their live class went.
Learn more.
And this student, you can tell, is joining from a phone. So some join from their phones, some join from other devices.
Because you are learning like a double at the same time.
Yeah, I'm showing here.
Thank you. Thank you.
So that's about it. Just to recap, use EnGen however you want, but find ways for the students themselves to show their assessment to you. And I'll stop sharing right now and leave the rest for questions.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, George. I mean, your energy there is so awesome with EnGen, and I appreciate it so much. Just as a reminder, you can get free licenses on EnGen. Lots of students use EnGen supplementally as well. Some teacher-led, some supplemental. So you can use it in various ways in your program. What questions do you all have as we reflect? And is there more you would like to learn about this topic? If you do end up wanting some EnGen seats and you fill out that form that Kathleen put in the chat or email Paula Georgian, I would be helping you get your program off the ground. I would be the one to help you configure it and mastermind it, how you would want to use it, and assist you, as George said, as we move forward. So I would be your main point of contact. But what questions can we answer?
Can I ask a question?
Go for it.
So my first question is it possible, as one of those seats, can you have a teacher account just to play with it some more and better understand how you might be able to use it?
Jenny, you don't even need to get a seat for that. I will give you a demo account if you wanted to pop your email address in the chat.
Okay.
Or anybody for that matter wants to have a demo account to just go into the student platform and take a look around, I'm happy to set that up for you. So go ahead and put that.
Thank you. I've completely forgotten what my work email is.
Okay, it might come back to you. I put my email in the chat as well. I will put my email in the chat and you can email me
There it is.
with any specific questions or anything like that. Perfect. Thank you.
Also, Jenny, I just read your question. I sent you a link to the organization you were asking about for laptop.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions about EnGen?
Can I just ask a general question then? Since my general question is there a lot of listening where you could just do like sort of one-off listening tasks? Because there are lots of resources on the internet for lots of things, but listening comprehension is not really one of them.
I'm gonna
Not good exercises anyway.
into one of them right now.
Could you?
The answer is
Here,
yes.
I'll just do that real quickly. Here we go.
That'd be great. I would love to see a listening exercise.
So, listening. Okay, so my admin portal. So here we go. All right, so this is somebody, Linda, you asked how to filter it from low to intermediate. This is everything. Let's say if you want low, I'm gonna go to beginner, just beginner. And okay, this one looks like, I haven't seen this one. Okay, there we go. You press play. I'm sorry. There we go. So this is how it works for, okay. You press start.
Yeah, I don't know why your volume isn't it's not working. But
Oh,
if you
my
go
volume.
back, George, to the
Yep.
admin portal as well,
Mhm.
filter there, scroll up a tad.
Yeah.
Under media type, you can
Yes,
decide
yes.
if you want a video, a reading,
you.
or a listening. And so we would teach you what those symbols.
Yeah, I didn't explain that. Let me find an example. Okay, my son's bus never came.
My son was late to school today. His bus never came.
So yes, you teach them to press play, teach them to,
My son was late to school today. His bus never came.
then you teach them to hover over one word.
Son.
Late.
And then here's the entire exercise. When you say, teach them to press, okay, I'm ready. And this is available in multiple languages. For my students, I encourage them to do all in English, but it'll give you a matching exercise. What's the word? So that's essentially how the whole thing would go for a low level lesson.
Yes.
And yeah, some of them are videos, some of them are all different stuff. So usually it's a combination. One is, I wouldn't say there's each lesson is exclusively reading or exclusively listening. Like when I showed you the screenshots and you saw how some of my students were getting 100 on the listening, but 30 on the reading, or vice versa. Each lesson will have a mix of different skills.
Yes. Good questions. And unfortunately, we are at the end of our time. And thank you so much for attending our sessions today. I put a link in the chat for the survey. If you would please fill that out, that would be great. And we so appreciate your time. And George, I can't thank you enough.
Thank you,
for
Linette.
everything you do for your learners and everything you are doing today for EnGen. Yes, our presentation. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend, and my email is in the chat. Please reach out to me if there's anything I can help you with.
Yeah. Yeah, and thank you all for coming. And I'll be sending up a follow-up message with the video from this session and another copy of the survey in case you don't have a chance to fill it out right now. Great. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye to everybody. Take care.
Bye, George. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Kathleen, so much. I appreciate everything. I'm trying to save the chat here. I want to get this email address.
Oh, your Zoom will save it for you. That should be one of the things you get from Zoom.
Yes, it does. Okay,
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah,
Have a good
okay,
one, Kathleen. I'll be in touch about the 4th.
great. All right, thank you so much. This was fun.
Bye.